Today's clip, I want to address this persistent hypothetical question as to whether, if everyone was into the financial independence retire early movement, how this might crater the economy. Hey, XenPuck here. BSing for another day just because I can. So one of the weirdest criticisms that I've heard about the whole retire early movement is that if implemented, it is somehow catastrophic for the economy at large. This, of course, is a total crock of poo. Okay, so it's literally the laziest criticism I've heard of the FIRE movement. So let's break down why people say this, why I think this line of thinking is just stupid. You know, they talk about it like a macro level criticism, but it's just not true. Okay. Point number one. Okay. One of the most common quotes that I hear is this: a consumerist-driven society will crumple if everyone all of a sudden saves more. Okay. This statement is true, actually. That would actually happen if all Americans suddenly saved more. However, when have you ever seen anyone suddenly change their lifelong habits? Ever, in any aspects of life, in any endeavor. Human beings as a group do not go cold turkey on anything. We can't even all be made to wear masks during this past year, okay? When the effect was literally to save our own lives. That's how stupid human beings are, as a group, right? Not as individuals, but as a group. This country has consistently had a savings rate in the single digits, the low single digits, for decades. To think that somehow in a few months or even a year or two, that the vast majority of people will somehow get to like a 50% savings rate is absolutely absurd, right? And almost entirely impossible. It's just not going to happen. So the premise of the statement is completely false, right? It is impossible to achieve in the USA anyway, right? This is the country that acts mostly like a teenager, still enjoys the ostentatious displays of wealth because it is so young, okay? Even if, let's say, a large minority, as opposed to a minor minority of the population started saving more and trying to, go towards FIRE, that would actually incentivize for people who are into showing off to flash some more flash, right? Because in this scenario, the person who's living in the now would appear to be even more well off relative to his suddenly more frugal peers, right? So instead of, a real majority moving in the same responsible direction, in the US, what's much more likely to happen if someone, a larger percentage even started to become more frugal, is more likely polarization on both ends, right? Between the very frugal and the dumber, and dumbest on the other side, right? I would argue it's probably the same divide as the people who don't wear masks, okay? Who are so stupid that they can't understand things like facts, right? Point number two. Now, what if we remove the suddenly part of the notion, right? Would people saving at a much higher rate still cause a recession or some such economic catastrophe? Well, no, not at all. And that's actually even easier to prove, right? Because there are already plenty of actual examples in the form of Asian countries that already has a savings rate that's multiple times the USA's, right? And guess what? Their economy is growing just fine, right? Heck, they're actually generally be considered growing at a faster pace than the USA, at least in the last couple of decades, right? So yeah, okay, simply saving more money doesn't mean doom. Because why do we save money again? Sure, it's delayed gratification, but we usually end up spending it on goods, just different types of goods, right? I'm going to go on a tangent, right? Someone might ask, so then what's the difference, right? Why wait and spend? Why not just spend it now, right? What's really the difference? Well, this rhetorical question, I think I can answer very easily and immediately because I think it's fun. The main difference is that if you delay satisfaction, you have exponentially more resources or money to spend. And also, during your accumulation or period of frugality, you would have much more security and therefore mental freedom, right? Rather than living paycheck to paycheck, which is what most Americans do, right? Even ones that make good money, right? Of course, I don't want to make it sound like it's all sunshine just because Asian countries save more, right? One of the reasons that why Asian countries historically have had a higher savings rate than the West is a result of a lack of a state-sponsored social welfare system, which of course is not generally good for that society, right? But what it does is it trains the average people to have a mentality of saving, right? Again, moving to a mentality of higher savings rate gradually, I think is totally fine, rather than the whole suddenly idea, which is never going to happen, right? And really, the only way mentalities can ever change is gradually. It cannot be forced. It cannot be celebratized, right? I use this word because, you know, sometimes a charismatic individual comes out, like even in the fire community, right? People start following it, and it's like a cult of personality. Somehow something, you know, whatever this guy says is taken as the whole truth and the only truth. Okay, if you follow any movement because of a celebrity, it will flame out, right? Because real knowledge can only be realized through learning from one's own mistakes, okay? Now, at a society level, right, in the case of something like retirement, I think the mistake will likely, you know, make itself apparent in some sort of a retirement crisis soon enough, right? Especially in the US when the boomers all hit that age finally, right? Now, the third criticism that I've seen, which is that high savings rate is bad for the kind of economy that we have, which is a consumerist-centric one, right? Again, the statement in itself is true, right? But is a consumerist economy the best and only option that we have? Must we keep buying and tossing more crap? I mean, I think this is interesting because this is spoken from a privileged position of the first world that, you know, people who live in the first world, they don't usually question it anymore, right? But this is also what I love about, you know, the FIRE movement, right? Let me be clear, I'm not against buying stuff. I love buying stuff. What I hate is buying useless junk. Gives you a moment of joy when you buy it, maybe a moment of joy when you get it, but loses its meaning entirely within a month or two, right? All the crap you bought on Amazon, useless mostly, right? Those are not the kind of purchases that should be driving an economy, right? You know what I love buying? Income-producing assets, real estate. I love buying things that I can pass down for generations. Almost everything else is just junk, okay? So yes, if everyone eventually adopts the FIRE philosophy, the current type of consumerist economy would suffer, right? But alas, the initial question was, will FIRE hurt our economy? Not just the economy as it exists right now. Now, I am absolutely certain that the actual economy will simply adapt if a gradual increase in savings rate is happening, right? What would happen is that because more and more people can free themselves from the shackles of needing to work, right, to simply exist, we'd have a wave of creativity and a massive boost in happiness, no matter what the new splurges in actual purchases will be concentrated on, right? It could be something silly, like a massive increase in hobby spending, as more people learn how to surf or kayak, right? Maybe it'll lead to brand new actual innovations, right, like in people's lives that aren't just stuff that concentrates on like work stuff, right? Like office communications. Like what the heck is Slack? Who cares? Right? This kind of stuff that's work-centric, office-centric, corporation-centric. It's not unnecessary. Like innovation in that front, productivity, right? For companies wouldn't matter if you don't need to have that corporate job to begin with. Okay? Look, man, I can't predict the future, right? But I know human beings aren't meant to simply toe the company line for the best decades of their lives. It's just not desired by anyone, nor is it necessary, right? There's no reason why everyone shouldn't aim for FIRE at the very least, right? After all, you could aim for the stars and maybe end up on the moon, right? It would still be better than just living like a chump all your life. Yeah, I said it. Working for 40 to 45 years when you know, during that period when one actually has energy to have fun is a huge waste of time, right? And it is only good for corporations and maybe your bosses, but not you. These types of macro level objections like, oh, if you do this, you will hurt the whole economy. They're just the most cowardly type of objections, right? So please don't buy into it and go your own way. You are more than just your job, right? Of course, no offense to the 5% of you out there that loves your job. Of course, right? Good for you guys. Anyway, rant over. If you enjoyed it, like it, subscribe it, whatever, sub, share, or whatever. Honestly. Cheers.